I'm going to turn it over now for the first of our panels, Veterans Panel, and it's going to be hosted by Dan McSweeney. Dan is the president of the United War Veterans Council. He is also one of our co-chairs here. He's one of the co-chairs for the New York City Metropolitan Community Veterans Engagement Board. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan and our Veterans Panel.
Great. Thank you very much, Tony, and ladies and gentlemen in the room and in Webland. Thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor to be here with you, and I just want to take a moment to thank both Cisco and Tony Davis. Tony, you joined our community about a year ago, and you've done great work convening everybody and providing appropriate guidance on how we can cement our relationship. So thank you very much. We have not yet had a round of applause, so let's break the ice and just offer. So I'm wearing multiple hats today. I am the president of the United War Veterans Council, best known for producing the Veterans Day Parade here in New York. We do a lot of other stuff. I am also somebody that receives health care at the 23rd Street and First Avenue VA Hospital. And my opinion is that that is a terrific facility. I've had no problems there. I've had surgery there. And so I'm very grateful to that. The other hat that I wear, though, is as a veterans advocate. So I've got my organizational affiliation, I've got my role as a veteran, and I've got my role as somebody who's standing back to look at the overall dynamics here in New York and nationally. And I'm aware, as I think we all are, that the VA is undergoing a transformation. Last night I was in D.C. for the premiere of the new Ken Burns documentary on Vietnam, had the opportunity to speak to the secretary and mentioned the good work that we're doing here at CVEB, and invited him to a town hall that we'll have later this year. He seemed very interested, and Martina, I know that you know him well as a healthcare provider. So my hope is that what we can do here this morning during this first discussion is just kind of lay out the context for what we want to talk about. I would encourage all of us, whether you're a panelist or not, to offer your frank views. We're not going to make progress in helping the VA evolve if we don't offer our honest, candid opinions. I think there's a lot of great work that the VA is doing, but there are also some opportunities to improve the work of the VA. And the Community Veterans Engagement Board here in New York takes it seriously that at the end of the day, if we don't have a strong connection between the VA and its stakeholders and constituents, then we're not ever going to get on the same page. We're not ever going to make the changes that we need to make. What are those changes? I think people have different views on that, and that's what the opportunity that we have this morning is, to discuss what they are from our personal points of view. Of course, these should be substantiated by actual fact rather than just opinion. Opinions are important, but they've got to be lodged in actual reality. And that's why it's so great that we've got senior VA leaders from New York here. They can help clarify what is the reality of the situation. So with all of that being said, I want to introduce the panelists that are here this morning. I'm sitting next to James Carr, who is a retired Master of Gunnery Sergeant from the Marine Corps. He works for the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, and he represents the interests of veterans at both Lincoln and Bellevue Hospitals. So he's got a lot of great feedback to offer. Next to him, we've got Heidi Mathis. Heidi is the spouse of a Marine Corps vet, and she is in her own right a veterans advocate, having done a lot of great work in the New York community and beyond for many years now. So Heidi, thank you for being here as well. We've also got Michael Valdivinos to my left. He wears two hats in the sense that he's an Air Force veteran, but he's also a care provider through the Military and Family Wellness Center. So he's got a lot of great insights to offer. We will be joined shortly by Catherine Cross. She's a Gold Star mother who's done a lot of great work in the community as well. So we've got people that have been around the block, if you will. They understand the dynamics of the veterans community here in New York. They understand the VA. And so that is really the start point for an open conversation. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to do this. And so what I'd like to do now is just ask each of our panelists to offer a few minutes of introduction on who they are and any basic thoughts that they have before we take it into a more guided conversation. So why don't we start with James Carr of the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to go ahead and speak for this panel. As a veteran and as a user of the VA system, one of the concerns obviously would be the ability to go ahead and get access when we need it. And as I talk to my fellow veterans that I interface with, that always seems to be one of the areas of concern. Capacity being one, and then the ability to get access when they want it, when they need it. And that's the highest thing on their agenda in regards to concerns and the ability to go ahead and get care when they need it. And then the transference of that information in terms of being able to get care in the public sector and in the public facilities, et cetera, is the ability to go ahead and get their care moved to a facility that's closer to their community, their needs, their access, and how do we transfer that so that it's seamless in terms of integration.
Great. Thank you very much, James. Appreciate that. Heidi, if you could offer a few comments,
Sure.
that'd be great.
My name is Heidi Mathis. Thanks again for including me in this morning's program. My family has a long tradition of military service. My father and brother were in the Air Force. My father-in-law and brother-in-law were in the Air Force, and my husband is a retired Marine Corps major who is now serving as a civilian working for the Army. He did spend 15 months recently in Kabul, and I came to understand some of the conditions of a spouse when someone is deployed and the challenges that come with that. And I feel that advocating, especially for those who may feel lost at sea, if you will, because their spouse is deployed, it's important to remember the needs of the family and the spouse when the spouse is deployed, because it may seem more difficult to them to obtain services they may need in the absence of the spouse. So I would speak to some of those points.
Great. Thank you very much. And Michael, if you could offer some thoughts.
Yes. Well, thank you for the invitation. And it's a privilege to be speaking at these events. I'm Michael Valdominos. I'm a former active duty Air Force clinical psychologist. Spent over just about a decade on active duty. I was primarily in an operational billet for the Air Force as a career psychologist, but most recently I separated, having been the chief of health psychology at Longitudinal Regional Medical Center. I wear multiple hats myself. I am a former employee of the VA, Palo Alto, and before being recruited to join the faculty at Weill Cornell, where I study and I treat veterans and active duty. I very much have a passion for continuing to work with military, both active duty and veterans. And so in a number of different capacities, I continue to do that. Having a number of friends that are still on active duty, I very much am committed to this. And so part of the role that I serve is both on advocacy and also in treatment, and also just hitting the community. I'm from the West Coast, San Francisco Bay Area, and so I've only been in New York for a year. And the only other time I came to New York was when I was about 11 years old for 2 days. Yeah. So it tells you how much I know about New York. But I spent probably the first 7 months of my time here in New York in the community, because that's just what felt right. Before I left active duty, for most of you who may be preaching to the choir here, so I apologize, active duty communities, the military mental health communities, moving very much in the direction of embedded behavioral health, much like I think some of what the VA is trying to do with embedding clinicians out in the community. And so I sort of was part of that tail end of that, and so that's very much a program that I believe in. And so I spent a long time in the community, and so I hope to share some of those experiences here today in an effort to work more collaboratively across the board.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate that. And Kathy, thank you so much for being here. I just offered some intro remarks very briefly. We're just asking each of the panelists to offer a brief intro on who they are and any general thoughts you might have working with the VA.
My name is Catherine Cross, and I am a Gold Star Mother and a Navy Gold Star Mother. I'm also a volunteer for the VAVS and an American Gold Star Mother volunteer. I am the founder of a group called the Tribute Journey. We produce about 130,000 greeting cards annually through the generosity of you all that are distributed to our veterans veterans in our service network throughout the country, including Alaska and Hawaii, and about 17 countries now, and are shipped to our service members. I travel extensively with my volunteers all over the country and see our veterans at bedside with many, many volunteers and fellow Gold Star, Blue Star, and Silver Star members. So I'm engaged with many, many of the families across the country.
Great. Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate that. So, as you can see, the folks that are here have a lot of experience, and we're looking forward to gleaning the wisdom that they've accrued over the years, which is significant. Some of the themes that just came up are access and portability of services, the importance of family links, and the tradition that the VA plays in families over decades, the need for spouses to be involved appropriately, mental health and community relations issues, and the great well of support that exists here in New York, but really across the country as well at the grassroots level. There's such an amazing community across the country that support our veterans, and that's something that I think we forget a lot. The VA is in a very unique place. Having looked up the Wikipedia entry this morning for the VA, here's some of the relevant facts. Established in 1930, became a cabinet position in 1989, 378,000 employees, net annual program costs of $273 billion, and expected actuarial commitments of $2.5 trillion in the future. So clearly, we are talking about a department, a government agency that has huge, huge significance in our country. And it's an interesting one because probably more than any of the other agencies, it straddles roles. It is a moral imperative for the VA to operate and to exist, but it's also a huge impact on the economy, and it impacts on a daily basis the quality of life for those people who have served in the military and their spouses and other family members. So what we do with the VA, we as constituents and stakeholders and leaders, is so important as we are in this era of ongoing military commitments. Doesn't look like it's going to change, and so how the VA interacts with the people it services is that much more important. And in the digital age, in the information age, the way that occurs is transitioning, hence our webcast. So I want to stop talking because I got a big mouth and I apologize, but that's just some contextual remarks. And what I want to do now is just ask a question, and I would ask the panelists to answer it, but then we want to open it up, not only to the folks here, but to the people on the webcast as well. And the question is, how is the VA doing right now? Is it doing well? Is it doing poorly? What do you guys think? I know it's a broad question, but please join me in answering these things. Let me just offer my view, all right? I think that it's a mixed bag, right? There have been some complaints about the VA. At the same time, we're seeing stellar performance in certain facilities. So I think it varies on the region, it varies on the facility, but I think that there's a lot of good work that's being done, and there are also some challenges. Master Guns, what do you think?
Well, I mean, one of the areas, as I indicated earlier, is that the area around access with regards to within the military, behavioral health issues, the ability of the common community veteran being able to get services when he or she needs it is one of the areas of concern. Many of the voices from the veteran service organizations, when they speak to healthcare issues, et cetera, the common complaint is when I need an appointment or when I need care, there's an extended period of time in terms of when they can get to their primary care provider or to a provider of care. So one of the things that we'd like to see happen is how do we figure out what needs to get done to shorten that length of time between the time that the person needs to make his or her appointment to actually getting care with his or her provider. The other question has to do with the things associated with behavioral health issues. As we know, there's an increased number of individuals that are tied to behavioral health issues associated with whether it's drug-related or community-related issues or just PTSD in general. How do we get those individuals to the level of care they need? Because we don't see providers necessarily going to VA facilities to expand those services for those individuals. Then the transfer of those individuals from, say, a VA facility to another extended care site that allows them to be able to continue their treatment in either an outpatient or an inpatient service capacity. So those are the things that, again, they're large scale and broad, but how do we figure out what we need to do to, bridge that?
So how's it doing? How are we doing?
Again, in some areas, in some facilities, we're doing well, right? St. Peter's is doing well with regards to trying to do those things necessary to get patients moved. We've got a pretty good relationship with some of the providers there. I'm not so sure about the facility down in Manhattan. I don't do a lot of interface with the facility in the Manhattan area or Brooklyn. But again, the feedback from the folks that I deal with from a community perspective, from veteran service organizations, the commentary is broad.
Thank you. Mike, what do you think?
I would agree. I think, I've had an opportunity to visit a number of different VAs around New York, and I would say that some are operating more strongly than others in respect to working with community partners, but also just the feedback that I'm getting from veterans. I would piggyback on Master Sergeant here on what he was saying with regards to how do we better work with those community partners, especially when it comes to access to treatment. One of the things about New York that I have found especially exciting and really special is that, New York has an extreme amount of services for veterans. I was in California where I didn't see nearly as many, especially behavioral health services, really fantastic services. And so one of the things that I really liked when I first got here was being able to see the VA, the Harvard VA, actually working with universities around Manhattan to offer a sort of extended service, but also build a strategic relationship so that those needs can be met. What I'd like to see is more of that. I know that there are some VAs that just don't have that quite yet, and I don't know if they're interested in doing that, but that's one way to get that access to care maybe ameliorated or at least improved, because there are a lot of people out here who want to help, and there's absolutely fantastic services here in New York City who are open and willing to engage. But the VA, being the two-ton gorilla in the room, really needs to reach out, as they have with certain universities. For example, the Harvard VA has a strategic relationship, I believe, with NYU, the Cohen Military Center, and that's great. The problem being, though, is that sometimes it tends to be more exclusive than inclusive. Mm-hmm. And so when folks get sent to NYU and their needs aren't being met there, well, then it becomes an issue of just transferring folks over, where it would be nice if there was more of a consortium around where we could work collaboratively to get those veterans the care that they need, because the reality is that there are specialists everywhere, and there's people that do fantastic work in a number of different domains, not just PTSD, moral injury, reintegration, depression, suicidality. We have, beacons of treatment centers here that are served as an example across the country, if not the world, that veterans have access to for free, independent of discharge, independent of VA, any kind of VA support. And so I'd like to see that move forward. And then lastly, the way that we've been able to do that, because we do that a little bit now with the VA, because I know there's also this issue of organizational business needs and goals management, right? RVUs, people are afraid to refer out because how do we get our needs met with regards to that? That's a big issue. And so what I've been able to do is work collaboratively with the VA providers, right? It's not taking patients away, it's working with you to reach the goals of those veterans. And when the veterans ready, transfer them right back to the VA where they get their health care. This is not trying to pull patients away, but it's working together to get the needs met for veterans. So, anyway, I can ramble on and on about this, but just sort of those are my two.
That's actually an excellent point, because one of the areas of discussion has to go back to the reimbursement issue. That's one of the fear factors, I guess, on both sides of the aisle. How do we deal with making sure that those patients, if they do happen to leave the VA environment, come back? Because they're afraid of losing the revenue stream, et cetera. And then if we end up picking them up on the public sector side, how do we retain them? Because obviously there's the issues of the Affordable Care Act and all these other different things that are going on from a reimbursement perspective. We want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence from a public sector perspective to hold on to those patients, because we want to make sure we're getting paid for revenue-based patients that we're dealing with. But we need to somehow set some of that aside, right? Find a way to bridge those two systems, whether it be the VA system or whatever electronic medical records that we're dealing with from a public sector, and do what's right for the patient, in this case, those veterans. Because again, we have, as you said, excellent opportunities to provide all levels of care for many of these individuals. And I think that has to be one of the underlying factors. And how do we do that? And how do we do that effectively?
Great, thank you, Heidi. I'm curious. What do you think about the VA's progress?
Well, I have two sides. As you said, Dan, it's a mixed bag. I would say the good part of it is when my husband returned, even though he was not in combat, he had been working as a public affairs director and media advisor in Kabul. So basically, for 15 months, he was in a prison-like environment surrounded by concertina wire, and his main thought every day was, where is my escape route? How am I going to get out if a bomb goes off or something bad happens? And when he came back to New York, the unexpected PTS that he had was kind of a form of claustrophobia. When he came back, he couldn't go on a crowded subway platform because there was no escape route. It also affected. We were moving our house at the time, and it caused us to pick a place that was not an apartment tower or anything, because you can't see around the corners, and it would have been kind of the worst thing possible for him. So the good news is he went to Cornell Weill and participated in a program there, just got help quickly, and he is, for the most part, past that. Every once in a while, he has a bit of a flashback to it, but thanks to Cornell Weill, he can ride a crowded subway. He can stand on a platform, and he doesn't have a panic attack. So Cornell Weill did a great job with that, and he was willing to recognize it and seek the help early, which was a good thing. The other side of it, from my perspective, and this may be individual to me, but I imagine there are a lot of people who are the spouse or family member of someone who has gone to work for one of the military units where they are working as a civilian, but their family members are still, of course, very concerned about them being in harm's way. And I'm wondering if there might be some form of outreach that the VA could do. I guess also in my situation, it was a bit of a hybrid because really John had 21 years in the Marine Corps, but he was working for the Army as a civilian. I don't know if there's any way there could be a bridge between those who are serving in the military but in a civilian capacity. One example I have from my family's experience is in World War II, I had a great uncle who, alas, the last mission he flew, he was shot down over Belgium, never made it back. So the nickname for him in the family was Uncle Fanch. And unfortunately, once it got within 2 months of my husband's return, I could not dismiss the idea of something terrible happening right at the end. So as everyone was asking me, oh, isn't it great, he'll be back in a month, he'll be back in 2 weeks, the thing was, it was getting much worse for me because I was very concerned he was going to become Uncle Fanch. Fortunately, he did not, but I just use that as a small example because I'm sure there are plenty of people who have that experience, even if they didn't have an Uncle Fanch in their family. But, as it gets toward the end, when everyone thinks, oh, isn't it great because he'll come back, he might not come back. And that thought, I'm sure, is not mine alone. And it might be something to consider, that if there were more outreach toward the end in those last 3 months or so, that it could help families more, because that is when a lot of fear sets in about, well, will he really come back at all, or will he come back in one piece? So that's a thought.
Great. Thank you very much. And Kathy, if you could just let us know, what are your thoughts on the VA's progress in the state?
Well, it's interesting what Heidi brought up. There are several things that I'd like to express to you as a volunteer. As I told you, I am a volunteer with the ABS. I'm very proud of that as a representative of the Gold Star Mothers. So I would have to express to you both sides, as a volunteer and as a Gold Star Mother. As a volunteer, I have seen amazing services offered to our veterans across the country, and I have seen things fall a little short. And I experienced an ER room with only one restroom, one for male and female, and the cleanliness was really not there. It was disappointing. I've been in so many hospitals and the civilian sector and have never experienced that, and it felt sad that my veterans had to experience something like that. In the recovery room, when I was there with a friend who was going through major cancer surgeries, there was no restroom for him to use, and they were told there's only one restroom for them again down the hall. Nothing in the recovery area. That's shameful, and I don't like to see that for my veterans, those who have served us this way, me, all of you. So that's one thing that I would like to express to you. But on the other hand, I must tell you that voluntary services is extremely welcome, and I think that it should be expanded upon. It shouldn't be just volunteers that are accepted, that are treated like employees and required to put in numbers of hours that are maybe not possible. I think an hour or two of voluntary service should be accepted, embraced, and appreciated. And so that's something I see that falls a little short. Now, I'm talking about the civilians. I wasn't going to say anything about that, but I think that I should as a Gold Star Mother. The Gold Stars, even myself, I know many of us experience similar feelings. For us, it's not just 3 months. It's ongoing. It never ends. And in today's world, in today's climate, and what goes on in America and many places throughout the world regarding our Gold Star family and volunteers like myself, where do we go to speak to someone who understands, to truly understand? You know, to us, it's you, it's the VA, it's the service members that we can look in the eyes of, that we know understand what we feel too. We are not just mothers going home, making dinner, cleaning house, and going on with our lives. We are mothers who are volunteers and want to be amongst you in our community to serve as well. And when we do, we are told, you may not be safe. Who do we talk to about that? That would understand? In the civilian world, they won't. They don't. They can't. We need to be amongst you as Gold Star family members. And I think that that's something that I really truly appreciate you bringing up, Heidi, because I don't believe that that's addressed sufficiently. And I wish that you would look further into that. The VA and the Gold Star community should be linked. There should be something similar to TAPS within the VA where we can go, where we can be amongst you, and you understand. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the opportunity to serve amongst you. It means a great deal to me, and I know it means a tremendous amount to the other mothers and the families.
Great. Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate it. All right, so that's a lot of material to unpack. We've got some great minds in the room. I think it's a good time to open it up because I'm sure folks have some thoughts on these topics.
Hi. I wanted to thank all the panelists for really great comments. And I'm Dr. Joan McInerney. I'm the network director for VA New York, New Jersey. So I cover from Northport, Jersey, up to Buffalo. And I thank you all for really your commitment to veterans and for being here today. I wanted to bring up some of the initiatives that the VA really has been working on over the past year. And maybe we're not doing a phenomenal job about advocating those things, but we really have moved to same-day access for veterans for primary care and mental health, and at the main hospitals. And now just in the process of doing the same for the clinics. And so what same-day access means is whatever the veteran wants. So if the veteran wants to come in, they can come in and be seen. If they want a phone consult, they can have a phone consult. if they wanted to go to a remote site and do a telehealth consult, they can do that. And we're working on some apps and things like that where they can, request an appointment, schedule an appointment, cancel an appointment. And we're hoping through technology really to get to doing visits with your doctor on iPhones and iPads. We want to deliver the care in how the veteran wants it. And some generations of veterans do want to come into a facility and be seen by their primary care doctor. Others would just rather, be seen quickly and get the prescription and, or whatever. So we're trying to adapt to that. So that's like a huge initiative of the Secretary. And in a few minutes, I'll let Martina Peruta, the Medical Center Director at New York Harbor, speak to what specifically they're doing at their facility. With regards to the mental health, we know that that's an issue for veterans, whether it's PTSD or suicidality and things. The Secretary, one of his 5 priorities now is getting to zero with suicide. And we are working, and I've heard some good things around the room today about initiatives with community partners, and I think that's hugely important. We have to get out of our behind our walls in the VA and really partner up with the universities. And I'm in the process of putting together a summit for the summer on how do we reach out of the VA to governmental partners, university partners. What can we do together? Because we know that if there are 20 suicides a day amongst veterans, only 6 of them have ever been seen in the VA. The other 14 are being followed out in Bellevue or Weill Cornell or whatever. How do we work with you to, identify these people and get them the best services that we can provide? And Congress has put together a program called Choice, and that does allow veterans to, in certain circumstances, to go outside of the VA to get services that they need. So there are a lot of things going on within the VA. We may not be doing a great job at advertising it. There may be pockets where it's not perfect, but our goals for the next year or so are really to kind of maximize telehealth because we have the ability to do that, and I think the VA has been somewhat ahead of that curve than the private sectors. I think that's really important. I mean, we have a program, one of Martina's employees, she can speak to it, called Vital Veterans Integration to Academic Life, where a psychologist actually goes to the colleges and in certain cases provides mental health services. In others, it's really to engage the veterans and to make them aware of the services that we have. And I think she has 6 colleges. It's been, for that generation of returning veterans, that's been really important. So we look at sort of every era of people who served a little bit differently. So I just wanted to mention those things, that we are aware that access has been a problem. I believe access in New York has been quite good, and there'll always be the person who wants the super specialist today, and maybe that's not always. We will get them into primary care and mental health and make them safe, and until we can get the additional care. Maybe Martina, you want to?
Yes, good morning. I'm Martina Peruta. I'm the director of VA New York Harbor, and in New York City, I'm responsible for Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. So I cover 4 out of the 5 boroughs within New York City. But that doesn't mean I'm not responsible for any veteran who may cross our path any way, anyhow. They're all veterans. So what we do in New York City is we do, as Michael alluded to, partner with many community resources, colleges, universities. Dr. Branson is out and about. I never see her. She's full-time out in the colleges and universities as a psychologist. really making sure all veterans are aware of the health care benefits they're entitled to. Often they're just using the GI Bill to get to school and don't know about all of their entitlements, and that's really why we're literally boots on the ground at the colleges and universities. But as a mental health specialist, she can also use her expertise to get into some of the issues that many veterans don't want to talk about. And they get through school, but sometimes they're running into problems, and she can pick up on that, and she works with university and college officials to make sure that the veterans feel safe in the environment. And if they don't feel safe for whatever issues, what are those underlying issues, and how can we in VA partner with the community, or how can we address them? And there's lots of different means that we use. In terms of access, we actually have very good access at all of our sites, and we have same-day access at our community clinics in Harlem and Staten Island as well. So whether you're at Manhattan and 23rd Street, whether you're out in Brooklyn and Poly Place, out in St. Albans and Linden Boulevard, we have same-day access to both primary care and mental health. And so there's a lot that we do now, but there's even more that we can do by partnering with our community resources. And I certainly would love to speak to all of you separately about what you're hearing and what we can do together. I have a very, very active mental health staff who partners with a lot of community resources, are aware of many of the community resources, and see how we can get the best care for veterans. Because of my location in New York City and my ability to successfully hire psychologists and psychiatrists, we are actually one of VA's national telemental health hubs. So what does that mean? Because I have a supply of providers, I can address the demand coming from across the country in the United States for parts of America who cannot recruit mental health providers as readily as we can in New York City. So right now, as a telemental health hub, I'm funded by central office, and actually we've already we need to expand because the demand is so great. So right now, we are servicing from New York City VA facilities in Texas, Iowa, and upstate New York, specifically for mental health. And the demand has been so great that we're now going into VA headquarters asking for more funding to hire to address needs of other parts of the country. But in addition, we also do neurology, dermatology, and the list goes on, because every day I seem to get a different email from one of my colleagues across the country. Can you help me out in X specialty? We're more than willing to help anyone across the country and anything that they need, because once again, and Dr. Shulkin has spoken very strongly about it, we need to match supply and demand. I've got the supply of providers because of my location, but the demand, based on the numbers, is much more across other parts of the United States than it is in New York City. So let's marry them up. With this capability, we're all talking to each other now via the same capability that we used to see veterans via telemedicine. So there's no reason that we can't do that, and we really try to get the word out, but that's just one of the ways that VA is looking, and I know it's very much one of the Secretary's priorities. We need to go much more virtual, because to think that you can deliver everything in your own backyard, those days are gone. It's the 21st century. We need to look much broader about how we can address the various needs of veterans across the United States and put all of that together. So there's a lot that we do in New York City. There's even more that we can be doing, and I'd love to hear, apart from this meeting, specifics about anything that veterans are hearing that we can do better in New York City and how we can partner. And Kathy, I know, because she's been one of my volunteers for a very long time, and I take to heart what you're saying, Kathy. I think the families, especially the Gold Star families, are ones that, well, you don't have a veteran necessarily anymore, but you know what? You've gone through more than anybody else. So what can we do within VA to address some of the needs that you raised? So I've been taking notes. So but what I think from a VA side, what we'd appreciate for everyone is let veterans know about VA, because what I find is many don't. Many assume, oh, I hadn't been injured. And that's not true. The eligibility criteria is different. And my outreach person, Lynn Johnson, is in the room. We do a lot of outreach, but we certainly are not getting to all the veterans are. And I think that's what we need to do an even better job of. And if you have pockets or whatever that we can work with you on, we're more than willing to do that. Heidi?
I have one quick thought that's kind of a portal in from a requirement, whether it is a veteran, an active duty military person or a civilian person. They have to fill out the very final will, and they have to go through health clearances and everything else. That's a packet that everybody has to go through before they are deployed. Possibly a portal into the family would be, okay, this is how you can gain access to care which you may need in the absence of your family member. And also, you might include in that things that the person who is deployed can consider upon return, that they realize these are things which are available to them. And I think if you attach it to something which is a requirement, and it's actually a scary requirement for the family because they're filling out the will and they're saying, okay, this is what happens if I die. Maybe if you put something in there that says, okay, this softens it a bit. Let's hope that, everybody comes back in one piece, and these are the services that are available when that person is deployed. It's a portal into the family that might, it might soften the finality of what they're filling out.
And I think that's something VA would need to partner with DOD. DOD actually generates that. But if indeed, God forbid, your loved one doesn't come back, then VA kicks in, and Adam's here from the benefits side. Is yes, there is that crossover, and at that point in time, that's not the best time for you to start learning about the resources.
Right, exactly.
You know about it just in case ahead of time.
It's better to know in advance. It's in the back of your mind, and then it's also less scary for the family.
Right.
Oh, okay, I have this if I need it.
Yeah, you have the safety net, and you thought about it ahead of time.
Right.
Thank you.
Can I just jump in here? Tony, we've got 30 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, you got about 30 minutes left.
Okay.
If I could remind everybody that's joined us via WebEx, you can type in your questions, and Todd, who is monitoring WebEx from our location, will read those questions out for our panel. And then if you want to reach out to the other sites.
Sure, absolutely. We've got the other sites. I think there are 6. And so we want to have an exchange, obviously. So please jump in and offer your thoughts, if you would. And in the meantime, we got a comment here.
Yeah, Dan, if I may, sure. I'll give you both thoughts that I had. So I'm Roger Woodworth. I'm with the Veterans One Stop Center, Western New York, out in Buffalo, technically upstate, but I guess it was Bronxville, right? If you're from down here. But I also have the honor of co-chairing our CVEB for Western New York. So the original question was, is the VA doing a good job? So I don't know how you measure that, but I will say that in Western New York, the VA that I inherited or that I got coming out of OIF versus what it was prior is a fabulous VA system. Every system has troubles extending influence beyond what they can control. But our VA, from my perspective, works as well as it can work given how it's designed. One of the best things I think we have in Western New York is the relationship that the VA, which is a VBA, we have a regional office. We're one of the few that has an education for the GI Bill, and we have a regional office. We have a healthcare administration there. We have 2 hospitals. We have a bunch of CBOCs. And we also have a national cemetery coming to Pembroke. So we have all 3 components of the VA. But the relationships in the community are top notch. So I see a lot of VAs market to veterans that we already have. So we put flyers up in the VA, we email, we reach out to folks that are already there. But in our case, it's only 47% of the vet population. So there's more than half more out there. So what goes well in Western New York is the VA never says no. They figure a way to get out in the community, to become part of the community. And these aren't my words. I think they came down out of central office. But trust takes time, right? And so we're trying to build trust, and that also takes relationships. And it just seems when the VA makes it easy and valuable and fun, or as fun as it can be to engage with a bureaucracy, it works. But Western New York's really got some good things going on, but it's not done alone, and we recognize the limitations. There's work to be done anytime you have a system. But the VA in Western New York is really one of the better ones I've experienced. A little bit biased because I'm part of it. But when you build relationships and you get in on the volunteer piece, bringing the Gold Star mothers, reaching out beyond the generations that shunned it or typically embraced it, and increase access. We're big on telehealth. I just met the telehealth guy the other day. He was at a barbecue in a community function. It was a great place to engage folks that had never seen it before.
Thank you very much.
That's both thoughts.
Hi, Tom Ronayne. I'm the director of the Suffolk County, New York Veterans Service Agency. Little perspective, Suffolk County has the single largest veteran population of any of the 62 counties in the state of New York. So we have a pretty solid presence. Our neighboring county, Nassau County, which comprises the other portion of Long Island, is typically they back and forth between Erie, but they make up generally the second most populous county. So as a region, we have a north of 150,000 veterans in our community. I also co-chair the Long Island CVEB, and I'd like to say that I'm really pretty happy to hear some of the discussion that I've heard already this morning, because it seems that a lot of us are tracking on similar things. We're seeing the same experiences across the network in our areas, but I guess to the original question, I would say, and I think Roger really kind of hit it on the nail on the head here, is I think VA, certainly in our region, I can't speak for what I don't know, but I think that there's a bit of a branding issue. I think that there's a bit of a branding problem when it comes to marketing VA to the community, and we tend to target. We don't know what we don't know, so we tend to target those populations and those population centers that we have an awareness of, and we may have already maybe not optimized it, but we've got penetration into those communities. There are a lot of areas that we're not touching, and in our experience, one of the areas that we have found a great deal of success with on Long Island has been leveraging partnerships, public-private, public-public, community-based providers to access the communities that they are in contact with that we may not be. And specific to the behavioral health, we have a very successful model that runs through Northwell with the Behavioral Health Center in Bayshore, and that has proven to be really a wonderful resource. To just drill down a little bit further into, as an example, the Behavioral Health Center that we're operating in partnership with Northwell and VA in Bayshore is the availability or the access that family members of veterans experience through that partnership. And I can tell you that I'm also a founder and administrator of the Joseph Dwyer Veterans Peer Support Program, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. But one of the things that we have experienced with the Dwyer program is that we are engaging many, many veterans who are not otherwise connected to VA services in the community. Many of them are not yet enrolled at VA, and there are a multitude of reasons. Some of them are eligibility-based. Dwyer will serve any veteran regardless of character or separation. But what we found over the past 5 years of this program, and we knew that this was a factor, but we didn't realize the significance of it, was that new veterans coming into us on initial contact with our Dwyer program, nearly 90% of our initial contacts are made through a family member or other loved one. It is not made through the veteran, him or herself. And I think that, I am a VA user, I'm a service-connected guy. I happen to think that our medical center, Northport, I refer to it as the jewel in the crown of the VA network. I couldn't say enough good things about Northport. That being said, VA, warts and all, I think is doing a good job, but there are areas that we can and should improve upon. And I think that one of the true keys to success is that culturally we need to broaden VA's willingness to engage family members, because nothing that affects us occurs in isolation. If it impacts my life, it impacts my world, it's affecting my children, it's affecting my grandchildren, my wife, my dog. And to not accept that, to not acknowledge and accept that, I think we do a disservice to the veterans who we should be serving by not fully engaging them. I think it's an untapped area that we could do a much better job in. And if we're not providing clinical services, I don't think that there's a big economic impact to this. And I think the net value of the expansion of the numbers of veterans that we would additionally engage far outweighs any potential expense related to finding ways to better embrace the needs of the family members, because they are they are the keys to the kingdom in terms of veterans who are not yet engaged in the system, and many who are. If I could just very quickly, GI Bill was brought up for a moment, and one of the things, and again, I think that we're probably all tracking similarly, but one of the things, we have a very large SUNY footprint in Suffolk County, and we have a lot of veterans enrolled at Suffolk County Community College. One of the things that we have been encountering through our student veterans associations and our partnerships there are that we know that there is a portion. We were surprised and a bit alarmed at the significance of this population of veterans who are attending school who have less than zero interest in advancing their education. They're going to school because they are unable to obtain adequate employment, and the BAH saves their skin. And we've got guys and girls who are going to school because they need that housing allowance. And there's not a lot of, we're not engaging enough, these veterans, I think, significantly enough with regard to that issue. And we're finding that many veterans are getting to the end of their college experience. And when that BAH abruptly ends, that these veterans find themselves in crisis, and we're not preparing ourselves or them to influence that experience. We can improve upon how these veterans are transitioning from their college education experience to the real world, because when that BAH stops and that job still does not exist, some of these folks are not really succeeding in the community.
Right. Great point. So we've got 20 minutes. Also, just want to remind folks on the WebEx, please offer your questions or remarks. And we do have one already. Great.
Yes, Tony, this is from Dave Henke. He is the Veteran Outreach Coordinator at VA Boston Healthcare, and he's got two for the panel here. The first one is, in regards to connecting with vets in the community, has anyone mentioned the Yellow Ribbon pre/post deployment cycle support events? That's his first question.
Can you say the second one?
Yes, and the second question he has is New York serves and PA serves, etc. The Unite Us one-stop model that was hosted as a pilot in 20 VAs across the country 2 years ago. Wants to know more about that.
Great. There's folks in the room that know about the Yellow Ribbon events. Does anybody want to take that one? Because I can't speak knowledgeably about it myself.
Hey, just the second question, Venkat is going to be the next speaker, and he's going to talk about that extensively.
Excellent.
That part of the question.
Terrific. So we'll get to Unite Us later. I think it's a great program. But what about these Yellow Ribbon events? Anybody familiar with them?
We participate in them. Again, I'm not a critic, but again, I think this is an area. It's a valuable and important program for its users. Some of the feedback that we get from Yellow Ribbon is that they are mandatory events. Service members and returnees are compelled to attend, and it's a lot of death by PowerPoint. The presenters are welcomed, but we tend to lose the audience pretty rapidly because of the nature of how the material is presented. I think in principle it's a great program. We do have them in New York. I won't belabor this discussion, but one of the things that we have found, again, being on Long Island, we have a very significant veteran population. We have virtually no active duty presence, so we lack an infrastructure. We've got a couple of reserve centers, and we've got a National Guard presence, and for that reason, the Yellow Ribbons tend to have migrated off of Long Island and into areas where there is a greater need. It's easier for a smaller number of folks to travel to another location, so they are invaluable. Again, one of the experiences that we have had is that the family members, there is a portion where they include spouses and significant others. There's a lot of value coming out of those engagements.
Roger.
Does DOG consistently invite VA to those events? It's not a VA event. So
Yeah.
that my question is, and this gets back to what Heidi raised, is the VA needs to be there while they're still active duty to reach out to the families and to the soon-to-be veterans. And I understand we've been to events, and the last thing they really want to hear about is how to fill out the VA application, whatever. But it's usually the family who's more interested.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's fine. But from my perspective, and it may just be from New York City, we're not consistently invited by DOD, so we don't even know about these. When we are, we make sure we're there. And that's something we probably need to work on from a DOD VA perspective. But it's difficult, and if the board can help in any way, if we're aware of it, we'll be there. But the problem is we're not always aware that DOD is even having such an event.
I just want to touch on something here, because I think I agree that I think we're all kind of saying the same thing here. I think, and I want to have a chance to sort of elaborate on some of the points that some of the veterans and family members are making. I think when I talk about behavioral health, I'm not talking about just behavioral health. I think it permeates physical health. So I'm kind of looking at this from both perspectives. I think it's just as important to talk about physical health, but they kind of, in my world, kind of both blend together because I've seen some of these issues consistently, not just in folks from a behavioral health perspective. The other thing I think that's really important to remember too is that, although this is we're talking about the VA, the VA, I don't think bears the whole responsibility for this. I think the VA is the like I said before, the two-time gorilla in the room, but it really is on us as community agencies to also bear some of that responsibility. I think the VA does need to step forward and engage because you guys have a lot of the resources, but it really is on us to continue that work. And so what I mean by that is whether we're talking about active duty, whether we're talking about within the community once folks are veterans, one of the things that I've seen that really works well is to continue that engagement, going to those events, reaching out to different partners in the community, and maintaining that relationship is super, super important. The reason I think this is really important is because veterans know, they can tell, right? If they go to a place and they don't get the services that they need, that starts to set a precedent across the board. That veterans talk, and it sort of leaves a bad taste in their mouth. This is something I've heard consistently over and over and over again. And so I think what I go back to consistently is that we need to sort of maintain that relationship with community partners to know sort of what the pulse is on the veterans community, so that we can continue to work together. Because one of the things that I'll continue to reiterate today is that there are a lot of services, but I think they're fragmented. There's not a lot of interagency communication. There are a lot of relationships that are built between one or two organizations, and then they stop communicating at that point with other organizations. And so then what you have is a flock of different services that the veteran approaches New York City, goes, well, where do I even start? Right? What do I even do? Do I go to Cornell? Where's Cornell going to send me if they can't serve me? Am I going to go to the VA? And then if I go to the VA, I'm going to be stuck at NYU. Right? If I go to the commissioner's office, are they going to send me to an agency that they have a relationship with and not look across to different agencies? Right? And this is consistently something I'm hearing over and over again, both from veterans and also something I've seen personally. When we talk about suicides, one of the things that I know I'm not here to educate, but I can't help it. One of the things that we really need to realize is I was privileged enough to sit on a lot of different military investigations when folks committed suicide in the military. And one of the things that I think I found the most powerful in sort of a why behind why folks commit suicide is this idea of really three things that I always found consistent in a suicide. And I think it's nothing different than for veterans. And one of them is perceived burdensomeness. The second is extreme isolation, and the third is learned fearlessness. The learned fearlessness piece is really concerning because we learned that on some level in the military. But the two other ones, which is perceived burdensomeness and extreme isolation, is something that we have a direct impact in our communities to fight against by addressing issues of failure to launch, which I think you brought up with regards to once folks reach veteran status out in the community, what do they do? How do they establish a sense of purpose, right? Once that GI Bill runs out, what are they going to do? If they can't find work, if they're being pushed out of the communities, these are things that lead to suicide. And we know this stuff. And so I think it's on us to kind of come together and address these issues, because at the end of the day, I really believe that a lot of the answers that we're looking for already exist. They already exist. But how do we come together and continue these conversations in a way that's inclusive? Because in conclusion, I will continue to stress that that is the biggest problem that I've seen in this year that I've been here in New York City, is that there's this extreme culture of exclusivity, and that's really hurting. That's really hurting all the agencies. It's hurting, and ultimately, unfortunately, it hurts the veterans. And so I'm not here to top my program. There's a lot of great programs that I can tell you guys about, aside from Weill Cornell. But I think at the end of the day, we just need to continue talking, because it sounds like a lot of us are on the same page.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And I don't want folks to think that New York City is too self-centered. So why don't we go out there and see if we can have a conversation with the folks in Herndon. Sorry to put you on the spot, but what do you guys think?
Want to say it's cold? I know.
How's the coffee over there?
Great. Coffee's great. The discussions are equally as good coming in from your area in New York.
Oh, whoa, there I am. Yeah. I'd like, can I say something?
Sure.
Hi, nice to see you all. This is amazing how this is all set up. I'm Andy Martinez, for the Veterans Experience Office and the My Day Communities Project Manager. Hey, Tony. So hey, Adam, nice to see you. Nice to see you. But no, this is really impressive. We're learning a lot. Kudos to Tony for putting this on, but really this is about learning what the community needs and how we can better partner together to be successful. This continues to be a priority for VA and for the Secretary of Community Engagement. And so just really thank you. It's really touching. We're taking a lot of notes, and we'll make sure to share with Secretary and VA leadership, the dedication you all have had today and what we're hearing. So really thank you. And so many more discussions to come. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
What I want to also add in on too is listening to the panel, listening to the discussions. Thank you to all the panel members for taking the time out this morning to participate in this very valued event for us. The sharing of your insight, this is what the VA wants to hear. This is how we want to do it. And whatever the venue that we have is requests from Maine to North Carolina, and hearing everyone's opinions. Thank you very much. And we enjoyed truly listening to everything that's being said by the panel. So thank you to the individuals who are sitting over there and taking part. Anyone have any other questions that they want to ask, participating on the discussions? That's great.
Great, thank you very much. And Jim, that is a great suit you're wearing.
I'm liking your touch over there.
Answer Boston's question about New York Serve.
We're going to get to that through DVS, but I just want to now, if we could, because
I think
there's quite a bit that's come in since all this. So I don't know how much we'll get to, but
we still got time.
Okay. Well, first of all, Dave from Boston wanted to clarify. I think some of us know this, but the Yellow Ribbon events are geared entirely to family members as well as service members. So for those who don't know much about Yellow Ribbon, so it's a family affair. That's how it's geared. So he wanted that point of clarification. He also says to us that VA Bedford is at every Yellow Ribbon event in their state up where they do business, and the local VA facility that is not solidly connected are reaching out to the local military command. That he said that's our feeling. We should be doing that, and that the deployment cycle teams at each of the Guard and Reserve commands will gladly include the VA as long as we make the effort to consistently reach out. That was his comment. We also got a comment from Jordana Malik. She's from New York State, and her comment was it would be helpful to also look at the state headquarters for Army and Air Guard connection to Yellow Ribbon events. So she put in a plug for the state involvement. And then I got from Rebecca Keogh, who's a relationship manager for New Jersey. Her question to the panel was, if you were going to recommend one thing for the VA to do to make a difference for veterans and their families, what would that be? What would you recommend?
Great. Thank you for listing those comments and questions. Anybody have any feedback?
I have one thing. I think if there is a way that we could grow out a more robust reintegration process for active duty and military coming out of the service would be fantastic. That also incorporated families. We have a really prime opportunity to engage folks while they're still on active duty. And I don't think that's being met very well. Having just gone through the TAPS program myself a year ago, I'm currently trying to work with the military base here because I know the leadership in the behavioral health department. But part of that is when change of command happens in the military, that creates a whole problem. Trying to get infiltrate the systems is difficult. But really, I mean, if you can capture folks there, that would be extremely helpful. So that the process of which, by the time they get to New York City, isn't an overwhelming process. They already know the community. They know who the players are. They know where to get services, and so do the families. That would be a huge suggestion.
Any suggestions how we could do that, though?
I think we need to do it together. So we already have relationships within the bases here.
But there's very few bases in New York City.
Well, that's good. That's great. But I think we do have those relationships already, but I think it needs to come from a community and not just a single agency perspective. Because my guess is that based on just the little that I've seen is that there are folks who already know players within the DoD community. I said I'm very well connected with the behavioral health community, but I know that that's only going to last as long as those people that are there for their assignment, right? But maintaining that relationship and building an expectation that we are there to serve them as they come out, we need to start doing that more. And it can't just be one agency. I think if we do it together, it would be fantastic.
So I think the answer is with the CVEBs, because what we should do, Tony, is name at least one member of the military here in New York as a member of the CVEB board. I mean, that would begin the links that would grow organically. That's my view on that.
We did have one at one time, but he's moved on.
Yeah.
Now, would that be somebody from the DOD side or from the DMNA side?
Either or.
Because they really sort of, now DOD is terrific until the guard folks come home, and then they come to federal court and they belong to the state again.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of interfacing that occurs between them once those guard units have come home, and that's what we have a lot of here.
That's a good point. I'm just mindful of our time. We got about 3 minutes, but Boxborough, I believe, has either a question or some feedback.
Hi, yes. Thank you. My name's Steve Connor. I am a Director of Veterans Services. Every city and town in Massachusetts has someone like me to work in that community. I started with one city, the metropolis known as Northampton, and it's got 28,000 people. And the reason I joke about it being a metropolis is I also, over the last 10 years, have taken over a lot of the small towns to work with the veterans in that community. And when we talk about the VA, we have one in Northampton, which is great, but I'll have veterans who live in those communities out there who the idea of even coming into the city of Northampton of 28,000 people is a metropolis to them. And so that sometimes is a barrier, and the respect that we have to give rural veterans is important. And I hear about telehealth, and telehealth has worked with a lot of people that I've worked with in those communities as far as their medical needs. But when it comes to the idea that telehealth would be an option for people for mental health, just trying to talk to a television screen with everybody in a room is hard enough. Imagine trying to deal with your anxiety, your fears, your transition, your trauma through a camera. It doesn't work, and it's something that has to be addressed for sure with the people that I deal with. I have more to say, but I guess I'll leave it at that because the time can be strange. But that's a real.
Yeah, I appreciate it. What I'm hearing here in New York is that there's disagreement with that point. Apparently, some of the folks here think that telehealth is very effective. We don't have time, unfortunately, to get into the nuts and bolts of it because we've got about a minute left. Kathy, yeah.
that I think it's important I need to leave you with. As a Gold Star mother, I don't have to take this wrong offensively, please, but when you say to me, I no longer have a veteran, it is offensive, because I am a service mother now, and I will always have a veteran. I have all of you. When I lost my service member, I embraced your community. You are my family now. Please don't tell me I no longer have a veteran. I have all of you. When a young man in Buffalo that was a veteran was at suicide risk and could not get through to the VA, he tried and tried and tried and couldn't get through. He called me and said, "You are a Gold Star mother. Can I speak to you, please?" And I was there to embrace him because I understand. Please, thank you for what you do to support our community. It's wonderful. I love the VA, and I believe in the VA, and I wish that they would embrace us too. We need you as much as you need us. We truly do. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kathy, for being so straightforward and honest with your views. That's what we're here for, so thank you for that.
Maybe this will be helpful. Kathy, this is Herndon talking. Andy and I would like to just say something, but let me start by saying thank you for your comments. I would like to stand by your side.
And I also, can you guys see me or hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. So just wanted to call out that, one of the things VA is doing right now is standing up a federal advisory committee for veteran families, caregivers, survivors. And so we immediately think of the Gold Wives. And so hopefully, the solicitation went out. And so please, take a look at that. If you haven't already, because we really need good representation on this committee to share stories like yours that you just shared. And so that solicitation does end this afternoon. So I just want to make sure everyone, is aware that we're trying to form this committee to give direct advice to the Secretary on how to better support our veteran families, caregivers, survivors, and all of that. So if you need more information, just email me if you can as soon as possible, Andrea.Martinez2@va.gov. So if you're interested in wanting to be part of that, please email me or talk to me ASAP so we can get your nomination in, okay?
We certainly appreciate your participation. The only other thing I want to add too is also going to go back to our state representatives' involvement in CVEBs and all, and I personally would like to get more involved. One of the ways that it is happening is through the NAFTA organization, which are all the state commissioners, signed by the governors. Les Devers is the executive director who has been talking with our new chief Veterans Experience Officer, Dr. Davis, and that is an ample opportunity for us to explore and a better working relationship with our states. They have many resources to include, in one sense or another, the Guard in supporting our veterans as they come back, and especially the veteran families. So we are working as the VA in developing a better relationship in the communities with the state directors, and I foresee that happening very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We've got a final remark by Mike, and then I just want to wrap it up.
Wait, Andrea, could you repeat your email address?
Yes. Andrea, ANDREA Martinez, MARTINEZ 2@va.gov. If you email me as soon as possible this morning, I'll forward you the link, and then you can email in any nominations. If it's yourself and you want to be part of that committee, we want to get your names in today. Dr. Davis is Dr. Linda Davis. She may know, probably knows a lot of you, and so I know, especially Gold Wives, we definitely want to make sure we have your participation in that. So Andrea.Martinez2@va.gov. Okay, and I'll keep
It's the numeral 2.
The number 2.
Yeah, numeral 2. Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea. Appreciate that. Thank you, Jim and Heidi.
That's done.
Yeah.
Tony, just make sure that that's recorded properly. Thank you.
Foxborough has one other comment.
One final comment, Andrea. Hi, thanks for what you're doing, and I'm glad to hear about this new component to be more inclusive of the families. But with regard to the Gold Star families, is there a way to ensure that it's not focused on just the Gold Star, all families of the fallen?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to be that concerned because, following my career in the military, when I became a contractor, my first job was to be the survivor outreach service coordinator. So I worked with the families with the phone. So it's important, because that's to say, Kathy was saying,
Sorry,
you know how these folks feel because we can never be in their footsteps, but we have to recognize that, especially when it comes to we're talking about the suicide. Because in many cases, we're dealing with the family members of suicide that these maybe were not veterans, maybe they're just deployed. Okay, it's kind of a culture thing that goes back to what the other gentleman was talking about. So you have to get to the folks, and that's why I think these CVEBs are very important because we're kind of at the cusp of it. We have to make sure that we're out there in the churches and the schools and everywhere else where we come in contact with any possible military-connected families to get to them before they're veterans.
Yes, no.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Tony, we're gonna have to move.
I know.
Folks, I'm sorry about this,
yes,
but
everyone, it's not just Gold Star. Any families. I just honed in on that because she was speaking. But yes, it's any, and so please, anyone is welcome to put in a name. Okay, sorry, I'm done. So.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that, and that's a great point about the broader community there. I'm very mindful of our time because the next presentation is coming up. But Mike, I think you have a final comment, and then I want to wrap it up.
Yeah. So I think this was a perfect example of I think that there's a healthy disagreement here, but I think what we're all trying to build is a community because the VA, there isn't one singular approach to what we're trying to do, right? There isn't one cookie cutter approach to what we try to do. I've done telehealth. I've done a number of different jobs where we try to reach out to veterans, and I haven't found one approach. I think this just speaks to the importance of how we need to continue to work together to build a community because there's going to be situations where we're not going to have every solution, but there's always community partners who are willing to engage, and I think the answers do lie in a community approach. And so I think we just need to continue moving in that direction, and many of us are here to engage.
Yeah. Terrific. Thank you so much. Hey, we're a little bit over time, and I apologize for that, but that means it was a good conversation, a lot of information expressed. I took 4 things away from this very quickly. The first is that the VA is aware of current dynamics and is making a good faith effort to address evolving circumstances. There's good work and challenges in the community. Number 2 is that the VA has an ongoing need to connect more deeply to a wide variety of stakeholders. We can call that bridging divides. Number 3 is that greater efforts are needed to market, advertise, and brand the VA's work. And number 4 is we have opportunities to innovate in things such as scheduling, access, telehealth, portability, etc. So all of that being said, I really appreciate the fact that folks came out today and that you were honest, candid, and intelligent in your assessment of where we are. There's a lot of goodwill in this community, and it's an honor to be a part of it. So I want to thank everybody for being here